Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tonight. We just had an amazing conversation with Cece Gerlach. She is running for state representative in D22. She is the candidate for the people. So go on her Facebook page so you can catch some of the questions that were asked, see the answers, how she came. And if not, then just check out her website for more information. Thanks so much and have a great night. And we love that. And I think anyone that has lived in Allentown long enough can trust that you will show up and that you will answer the questions, which is why we are here. So continue to drop your questions in the chat. We do have a question from Maribel. And she says, I am currently in a shared living house. I receive SSDI. My issue with my rent is the application fee. Can you provide some feedback or comments on this?
Yeah, definitely. I have heard that a lot as I've been out there knocking doors. It's the application fees, and then it's also what I've seen in these apartment complexes is it's the property management companies charging people for these so-called amenities that they don't even want and that they cannot use. So yes, we need to tackle the property management companies as well as property owners' ability to charge these application fees, and also we need to tackle these added on fees. So fees in general. I actually have contacted an attorney. Now she does have a high caseload because she works pro bono to help people with their different housing situations. But so I am waiting to see what can be done right now at a local level. Mm-hmm. But part of the reason why I'm running for state rep is I've seen far too often these laws that need to be changed are at the state level, and we're limited at the municipal level in what we can do. We can advocate, we can organize, but in terms of changing law, again, that's typically at the state level. And one policy I do have that I would like to incorporate what you just said in terms of the application fees is rent stabilization. The rent stabilization legislation would allow municipalities to cap the amount of increase that a landlord can put onto their tenant. Inclusive of that could also be application fees and amenity fees.
Wonderful. Of course. So along those lines, we do have another question. We have a couple more questions coming up actually about this. So can landlords charge utilities and amenities in a complex?
As of now, yes. Right now, Pennsylvania is a very landlord-friendly state. There are not as many tenant protections as exist in other states. I would like to change that. We know that there are good landlords out there. I know many of them that they want to provide safe, quality, affordable housing for their tenants. And we also know there are a lot of mega corporations that are taking advantage of this housing crisis and filling their pockets. So any legislation that I introduce, number one, will be in conjunction with tenants and also landlords, property owners, because I am not trying to put an undue burden on a person who owns a couple of properties and they are earning some supplemental income or maybe even their main income. No, the main issue from what I see are these mega landlords, the big guys that own multiple properties, such as these complexes. So to your question, as of right now, there is no way to rein this in and stop these complexes from doing this that I know of. Again, I'm waiting for this attorney to get back to me, and I hope she can tell me something that I can do as a council person right now to stop this. But until then,
I love that you're already doing homework. You're already doing your homework and preparing. We absolutely love it. We also have a question from Jumaira. Her question is: there are landlords across Allentown that are charging $1,000 per person in a room. How can we make sure that landlords don't continue to take advantage of people?
Mm. Yeah. So the one state representative that I look forward to working with who has really taken this on, the issue of tenant protections, is State Rep Rick Krajewski. He introduced a while ago an eviction ceiling piece of legislation where evictions, if you weren't actually evicted, if you came up with the money or the judge worked something out with you, that those so-called evictions would not show up on your record. And so I look forward to working with him to address issues like this. I would say the most direct solution to this would be that rent stabilization, because while we cannot control what a property owner decides to rent a place out at, if they're going to charge $1,000 for a room, we can't control that. But what we can control is that property owner doesn't then increase the rent year after year, $100.
Wonderful. We now have a couple of questions that are leading us towards working with the unhoused or the homeless concerns throughout the city of Allentown. So Gary asks, he would like to know, what are your plans to help the homeless, in his words? And please give in detail how much this year has the city actually spent on the unhoused?
Mm. Yeah. So I would say that first I'll start off with what I've done on city council. So as a council person, when I first came in, we did not have a budget line item for the unsheltered community. Nothing existed. We do now. And that's because during the budget season, I made sure that there was a line item specifically to deal with the unsheltered crisis. When I first came in, we did not have a position that dealt with this crisis of homelessness. Now we do, and again, I introduced the measure to make sure that we would have that position. When I came in, we did not have a group of people that gathered in a regular place at a regular time that shared ideas, shared strategy, and coordinated with one another. Now we do. I was able to introduce legislation within my first month of being on city council to form a commission on homelessness, got that passed within my second month of being on council. I say that because politicians, people wanting your vote, will tell you all the time what they're going to do. But I think it's important to share with you what I've done. So within 2 months, I got a commission on homelessness in the city of Allentown. We now have $100,000 that is allocated every single year towards the unsheltered community specifically. Now, you asked how much do we spend? So it goes beyond that $100,000 because homelessness is a multifaceted issue. It's not just street level homelessness. It's not just the person who many of us stereotypically think of being homeless. It's also the person who is facing eviction. So we allocated money towards the Right to Counsel program with Judge Vega, which helps people not get evicted by enabling them to have an attorney. I believe we allocated at least 100,000 to them, to that program. We allocate money to the various shelters that do exist. I know we're limited. We definitely don't have enough shelters, but we do allocate money to the ones that do exist. We gave the YMCA warming shelter additional money so that they could open earlier. We also give some of the day programs where people who are unsheltered go to get warm, to get a hot meal, to socialize, have fun, get access to job readiness programs. We we've given them money. So yes, while the 100,000 line item is just 100,000, it's a lot to most of us, but within the city's budget, it's not. There are other allocations. Is it enough? No. 100% not enough. We should be spending more specifically on housing, which would be inclusive of the unsheltered community, but housing in general. A lot of what's happening, why we see, to get back to your Myra's question, now that I'm kind of on this, we see these skyrocketing rent prices, not just increases, but these rent prices because of the gentrification that's happening downtown, but then now at the waterfront. So when you've got these new luxury apartments coming in that they're charging $2,500 or $3,000 to live in, many property owners feel justified, based on supply and demand, to now charge that $1,000 for a room. So until we have guardrails in place that are going to slow down the gentrification, and there's policy that we can put in place I can get into, but I don't want to go on for too long. Until we see that, we're going to continue to see these high rents, and we're going to continue to see people get pushed out.
So that's wonderful, because you started by saying, that it's important to know the plan, but also what the people that are running for office have done and what is your track record. So one of the questions coming in, so Barb asks, your opponent started rubber stamping House bills as soon as she got to Harrisburg. Right out of the gate, she voted yes on HB 2151, which fast tracks the centers in the state, the data centers in the state. This fast tracking is very unpopular. What can you say about how you will handle your voting to avoid just rubber stamping what Harrisburg wants, even if it's not good for the local municipalities?
So my entire time as a legislator on council has been accomplished through co-governing. I do not lead. I do not govern alone. I govern with people. I am not the expert in any one topic, so I go to the experts. So when it comes to data centers, who will I be consulting? I'll be consulting labor. I'll be consulting the environmental groups. I'll be consulting the progressive groups. I'll be consulting business leaders. I like to gather the information, which sometimes is not always in agreement with each other, but gather all of the information and then vote accordingly. Again, I can't recall a single vote that I have made in which I have not had to do research and go to experts to ask for their input. Doesn't always mean I vote according to what they're saying, but it is good to see multiple angles of a bill, because everyone has a different perspective. And also what I've seen is sometimes there are unintended negative consequences to a piece of legislation. I mean, prime example of that, I worked with Liz Bradbury. Her and her wife founded the Bradbury Sullivan Center in Allentown. And so, we did a great thing. We revamped the anti-discrimination ordinance to be one of the most comprehensive in the state. But because of unintended consequences, we didn't realize that then dismantled the Human Relations Commission, and we needed to restructure it and reappoint people. So even when your intentions are good, even when you've done all your research and you are co-governing, sometimes there are unintended consequences, which is why you need to cover all your bases as much as you can, and then be able to know how to legislate and maneuver so that you can fix any mistakes that you've made along the way.
Absolutely. Great. No, and that shows that you are willing to do your homework and ask experts and find out what's appropriate. I do want to remind everyone to please drop your questions into the chat. There are some hands that are being raised. However, we are not bringing anyone on camera. or off of mute. Your questions have to be asked in the chat, and they will be answered accordingly. We have another question around data centers. So this is from Julie. Her question is, what can we do about data centers and detention centers? And that brings another point to what we're talking about tonight.
Right. So I'll start with data centers. With data centers, we we definitely need to allow municipalities that want to do more research, want to figure out what type of regulations work for them. We need to allow those municipalities to issue moratoriums. A moratorium would say that, hey, look, until we do our research, until we find out what are the pros, what are the cons, we in this municipality are not going to allow data centers. We need to ensure that at the state level that there are not any laws that are preventing local decision makers from making local decisions. As a local decision maker, as someone on council, I know far too often that we are preempted. We are stopped by state law from doing so many things. And regulating data centers at a local level, piece of legislation that I would support would have extremely tight regulations on data centers, because there are data centers that potentially could be built near distressed waterways. We know our waterways in the Lehigh Valley, in Lehigh County, are distressed. The last thing we need is to have more strain on our waterways. We know that even if a data center uses like this closed loop operational system where they recycle the water, we know that there's potential to still put strain on the water system. And I think even though data centers have been around for some time, they're still new. And when something's new and shiny, sometimes the immediate impulse is just to jump and grab it. I think we need to slow down, and we need to take a look at the pros and the cons, knowing that yes, construction jobs are created, and then how many actual long-term jobs are created. Are they union? Can we actually get a community benefits agreement that is binding, that will ensure that any and all jobs, if it's one or two long-term jobs that are created along with that data center, are union jobs, are well-paying jobs? And can we actually ensure that the data center is not going to be a strain on the local environment and or the utility costs for the surrounding community? I have not seen that data to show that, but I would be open to seeing it.
Wonderful. So now we're going to shift a little bit towards education and nonprofits. Jonathan asks, our Jewish institutions in the Valley are experiencing funding issues due to increased security because of anti-Semitism. While in the state and federally, there have been several grants available, this only helps a little bit. So will we be able to see from you like the support for school vouchers for private schooling to help aid the cost for Jewish families and to be able to fund Jewish institutions, and invite the local families to attend a higher priced institution, as well as inviting them to the Valley because of assistance through these vouchers?
So I will say, I go to the JCC to work out. I'm a member of that gym, and I am thankful for the security that they have there. I think it makes me feel safe. It makes all members feel safe when they are there. So as on council, I do remember allocating some funds to the JCC, and I believe also the Jewish Day School, for security and other needs that they have. I do not support school vouchers. So I would not support legislation that would implement school vouchers as a more robust program.
Yeah, thank you for that. George asks, what can you do to help nonprofit youth sport organizations or nonprofit youth organizations in general to help keep the youth in our city safe and on the right path?
Yeah, a lot of it is funding. Big surprise. A lot of it is funding. Um, my perspective is that we spend a lot of money on the after effect of not having those school programs. So we spend a lot of money on incarcerating people. We spend a lot of money on arresting people. We spend a lot of money on the punitive aspect of not having those after school programs. So instead, it has always been my belief and my effort to invest in the root causes of crime, the root causes of poverty, which is access to a quality education, access to quality job training, access to fun, access to recreational opportunities. So 100% would support funding for those programs. And also, when you look at the school system, I remember when I was on school board, my goddaughter, she she was in, what was she in, 10th grade, and because her counselor had an incredible number of students, she had never even met with her counselor. So her counselor didn't know her, my goddaughter didn't know her counselor. So, yes, it's after school programming. Yes, it's recreational opportunities. And it's also what's happening in the schools themselves. There should be no way that the Allentown School District counselors and mental health professionals and teachers and paraprofessionals have these increased caseloads. There's no way that they're going to be able to address the needs of every single student to the degree that they deserve.
That's great. So I do again want to remind everyone, if you continue to have questions, please drop them in the chat. We are asking them and we are trying to do our best to lump them so that the questions do flow nicely. So we will be circling back around to housing, but we do want to continue in the path that we are in, talking about different needs and marginalized communities, nonprofit sector, and how to assist that. So we have a question from Jonathan. As an ally of the LGBTQ community, a lot of my friends in the community have stated that they only feel safe in Allentown when they go to Vogue Lounge. Vogue is poorly funded and struggling not to close altogether. So basically to be able to stay open. So what can be done from your point, from your position, that can ensure an upkept and safe space for the LGBTQ community in Allentown and in the Lehigh Valley?
Yeah. So what I have seen on council is I have seen grant opportunities that come to council as what's called pass-through grants. And the way they work is organizations that need money maybe for infrastructural repairs or security or whatever their needs are, they are able to apply for these state level grants. It seems to be like, I'm just thinking of some of the organizations that we've given money to. They seem to be bigger organizations, which is great because they need those funds as well. And we also know there's places like Vogue Lounge. We know that there's places like the Caring Place. We know that there's smaller organizations that may not have the capacity right now to access those state grants. On council, I know a lot of the money that gets distributed, you have to have certain number of audits, you have to have all these, X, Y, and Z. And if you're a small organization or a struggling institution, you might not have that. So having different layers of funding with different, more flexible requirements and terms, I think I think that would help places like Vogue Lounge that are essential. Like Vogue Lounge is historical.
Mhm.
It is a place that is in many ways sacred. And it's places like Vogue Lounge, it's places like Casa Guadalupe, it's places like the Caring Place that make a community. And without them, we become a corporate, just boring, no vibe, no fun type of atmosphere, and that's not good for economic development. That's not good for growth. So I would say definitely making sure that places like Vogue even know that those state grants exist. Sometimes, just to be honest, it seems like it's a who you know type of situation. So well, y'all know me now. So
Love it. Thank you. So, around not just the marginalized communities, but still a little bit around education. So, Dr. Kelly would love to know, what are your thoughts about how to make higher education more affordable in Pennsylvania?
yeah, definitely in terms of the state schools, we need to ensure that we are not continuing to raise the tuition year after year. I also, not to dive into just one particular group, but it's important. I believe that dreamers, those who were brought here at a young age, and they've grown up here and they're just as American as anyone else here, I believe that they need to be charged in-state tuition, not out-of-state tuition. So that alone would help that specific segment of students. Um, and I think that thinking more broadly about housing, knowing that a lot of our students, especially like right here in Allentown, we've got Muhlenberg, a lot of our students are living at off-campus housing, and thinking about how housing policy would affect them as students who are seeking an apartment off campus, knowing that there'd be protections and certain restrictions in terms of rent increases for them and for their family. In addition to that, I mean, I had an opportunity to meet with the president of Cedar Crest College, and we had a wonderful conversation talking about the various scholarships and outreach that Cedar Crest is doing in the community. So I think that to increase their diversity, to increase the number of Allentown residents, adults and young people who are attending there. So I think that if we can support private institutions that are doing those sorts of things, there's now a program in which I was a first generation college student, and I could have benefited from this program back in 2004 to 2008, where there's access to food banks on campus to make sure that people are not going hungry. There are first generation programs at our private institutions and public institutions now. We need to make sure that they're getting funding and that there's grant opportunities available to keep them going, because most of us who are of age, we didn't have that when we were in college. You just had to struggle. You ramen noodles if you had it. It shouldn't have to be that way.
I love the honesty. If you had it, because it's so true. Not even that was hard to afford, and we went to school right around the same time, so I know what the economy was like. So circling back to housing, and we are almost coming to the end. So I want to make sure that the last few questions that we have do get answered. And then there's a really important question at towards the end that I want to make sure that we get to. So I will ask these two as one so that we can get one concise answer. So both are actually coming from Alma. And her concern is landlords charging amenities even when it is not a complex. That's one. And then the other piece of that is that there are tenants that are paying in a complex and being billed under RUB system or RUB that don't have their own meters. That, how is this possible? And is this even legal?
Thank you, Alma. I feel like we might have met. I'm not going to put your complex out there to expose where you live, but I feel like I might have knocked on your door. Um, yeah. So I am in communication with, I had mentioned earlier, an attorney from a local nonprofit that helps folks with their rights when it comes to housing. Um, and I'm hoping that when that attorney gets back to me, she says that there is something we can do at a local level, so I don't have to, and we don't have to wait until I get to Harrisburg. Um, but I will say that to me, I'm not an attorney. To me, something is off. Something is off that complexes or private landlords are able to not have metered apartments where they are just taking the total cost and just dividing it up based on apartments. I met a woman in one of the complexes on the east side who was away for a month and said her gas bill was more expensive for that month she was away than every other month that she was there. So to me, just some things, you have the smell test. It doesn't pass the smell test, which is why, and that was the woman that, as I was walking down the stairs of her building, I immediately texted this attorney and then sent her an email to find out if anything can be done locally at the state level. Oh yeah, I'm fired up about this. I will expand. My initial fired up is about the complexes, but if you're telling me that it's also private landlords, let's add them into the mix too. This will be, I can't tell you specifically what legislation, but there will be legislation on this. Because one thing I have found as a legislator is that is why you're there. You're not there to look pretty. You're not there to sit in a fancy. You're there to get stuff done. You're there to hear a problem and then find a legislative solution to address that problem, and then get that piece of legislation to pass. Now, what I have found is typically other cities, other states have already passed something similar to what needs to be passed here. So I'm part of some networks that are across the country. I also have a phone call into some of them to figure out what other states are doing to address this, because it can't just be our problem. It can't just be that in Pennsylvania that this is happening. This is happening in other places too. And places that sometimes are a little bit more progressive, have a little bit stronger tenant rights, they already have legislation to address this issue. So I look forward to working with those folks to figure out what we can do in Pennsylvania.
Perfect. So, yes or no, right? So this one's really quick because I think I misasked the question, and it was focused more about not necessarily private landlords charging for amenities, but even within the complexes, landlords charging individuals that aren't able to access them. So maybe the amenities are not ADA compliant, or tenants being disabled that are not able to access the amenities. Can they continue to charge them? Or is that something that, with the research that you're going to be doing and working on making these changes and working with the lawyer, you will also ask as, in a bulk question?
Yeah, since I'm not a lawyer, I don't want to give you the wrong guidance just to get your vote. Like I need to find that out. I will say that in general, when you're dealing with ADA, I mean, ADA is a law. So I think if there is someone with a disability that is being charged for something that they cannot access due to that disability, I think then that goes into a whole other realm. It's not just, hey, I don't want to use the dog park. It's I physically can't. I think that goes into another realm, and that an attorney definitely I would advise you to speak with an attorney.
Right. Yeah, because there are laws in place to protect that. That's wonderful. Okay, so second to last question. And this one is very important. So we wanted the question is coming from Leonida. Your thoughts on exploring additional programs specifically designed to support the mental well being, particularly for single mothers who often find themselves juggling the responsibilities of managing a household as with a single income. And single mothers often face a multitude of demands in their everyday life and being split up with resources. So leaving them with limited access and avenues to seeking support.
Yeah. So definitely investment into our mental health services, but to your point, accessing them isn't always the easiest when you have to physically go to the place, do the intake, and you've got kids and you've got a second job. Yeah. So it has to be that the investments that we're making are into organizations that are flexible, organizations that are culturally relevant, culturally
I
aware.
know a place.
Because
I said I know a
yeah,
place, but carry on.
yes, yes. So we need to make sure that, because not all of these organizations, some of which I've dealt with, have that level of flexibility. But when we find one, when we find that diamond in the rough, we need to make sure that we're investing in them. And if I can kind of go beyond that question and tackle some of the reasons why, as women, single women, those of us who are in a caretaking role, tend to be stressed and need a lot of mental health support. Um, I, if we can ensure that people are earning a living wage. I mean, how much of our stresses come from just not knowing if we can pay the bills, looking at that freaking gas pump when we're hearing it click and it's up to $70 now to fill the tank. If we can make sure that people are earning a living wage, that we can adjust. I would support putting a freeze on the gas tax right now, like other states are doing, or at least exploring doing. If we can make sure that when you're walking in to get the food for your family, that you're not being charged $3 while someone else is being charged $2, because these corporations are using all of our data from the internet to jack up the prices. That's going to cause you less stress. So yes, we need mental health services to be invested in and supported. And also, we need to make sure that we're not adding more stress and triggering any types of situations that you're already dealing with. And a lot of that can be done through legislation. So invest in the mental health services that are culturally supportive and flexible and based in the community. And they tend to be smaller, local versus like the bigger nonprofit or the bigger corporations. Um, and addressing the issues that lead us to be stressed and depressed and worried and not able to just focus on our mental health, if we're worried about all these other situations.
Beautiful. So, very last question before we wrap up tonight is a two-part, but I think it's the pretty much what we all want to know. One, if we don't live in PA 22, why should we support you? And what sets you apart from your opponent?
Yeah, so as a state rep, the decisions that I'll be making will affect the entire state. So even if you don't live in District 22, when I introduce rent stabilization legislation, that's gonna help you out. When I introduce legislation to tax the wealth of these billionaires and to make the 73% of corporations that are not paying corporate income tax, when I introduce legislation to make them pay their corporate income tax so that that money can then be used to invest in our communities, that's going to affect you, even if you don't live in District 22. And when I introduce legislation to make sure that working and middle class people are able to get money to fix up their homes, that's going to affect you even if you don't live in this district. This district, in many ways, is representative of the entire state. We've got people who are struggling, and we've got people who were struggling yesterday, and they're now in a little bit better of a financial situation. But guess what? We've all got in common. We're all working class. We are all going to work, or we're retired from working, and many of us are living on fixed incomes. And that is the one thing that unites Salisbury Township in the city of Allentown. And that is the one thing that unites us with Macungie, with Scranton, with Albertus, that we're all just working class people from, and then we have some of our own struggles and issues just based on our identities and based on how we walk through life. But again, regardless of those differences, we are all working class people just trying to freaking make it in this world and these systems that were not designed for us to thrive. So that's the first part. And what sets me apart from my opponent is my experience and my legislative experience and my policy platform. I know what I'm walking into and I know what I want to accomplish. Um, I I've been dreaming of a day where I could help people with housing at a higher level. And this has been something I've researched, the policies, and I've looked into. This is not something that just has been handed to me, or not something I've been selected for. This campaign started on the porches of teachers. This campaign started underneath bridges. This campaign started in union halls, and this campaign started in lines at soup kitchens. That is what has informed this campaign, and that is what will carry me through to Harrisburg. It's not about being with the political elites. It's not about the political machine. It's about the people. And that's what sets me apart. I am ready to go down there right now and get to work for you. And I know what I'm doing. I'm ready to lead. I've been leading. And I hope that I can count on your support. If you have any questions, I'm sure my email is being put into the chat right now. Feel free to reach out. Myself, my team, someone will get back to you. If you want to hear directly from me, that we can make that happen. I will come to your house. We can have a conversation. And I'm accessible. So thank you so much again, Melissa, and everyone who's asked questions. If your
Absolutely.
question didn't get answered, that's okay. We'll make sure that I answer it.
You were absolutely incredible. It has been my absolute honor and pleasure to host you tonight. This has been very informative. I am grateful not just to you, but of course to you, but to the audience, to all of you for trusting us to not only ask your questions fully and honestly, but also for Cece to be able to answer these questions. So thank you, Cece, for your honesty, for your transparency, for your endless work, for being the people's candidate. And we absolutely love this. So if you are inspired or were inspired tonight by Cece, we invite you to, if even if you don't live in D22, talk to your family, invite them. Elections are May 19th, even though there are some people that are already voting. There are mail-in ballots already coming to your homes. Make sure that if Cece's name is on there, you check that off. You fill it in fully. Don't check it off. Fill it in fully, okay? May 19th is election day. Come out, support her. Again, her email is in the chat. Her website is in the chat. You have direct contact with your representative. So continue the conversation. Cece, thank you. Even if anyone has continued questions, whether they're in Spanish and Arabic or in any other language, send them our way. We will do what we need to do to get those answered. Cece, once again, thank you so much. And to everyone that watched tonight and joined us, thank you as well. Cece, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, just again, thank you so much for tuning in. We we really are a microcosm of the entire state, and a lot of times people say that we're cynical and that we don't care and that we don't want to engage. But guess what? We're here tonight, so thank you for that. I wish we could have had a debate. That would have been great. But this is wonderful. I'm glad we got to hear directly from voters.
Thank you all. Have a blessed night and enjoy the rest of your evening.